This is Ron Milburn. I want to thank you for the first place award in the short screenplay competition category of the 2020 Hollywood Jumbo Screenplay Festival. It means a lot to me, and I certainly do appreciate it. You asked 4 questions in your email and asked me to make a video answering those questions. So the first one was the inspiration. The inspiration for Paddy's Tonsorial Emporium was from personal experience. I shined shoes as a 13-year-old boy in 1967 at a barbershop, an old-time barbershop, smoke-filled barbershop that had a lot of unique characters. And there was a war going on, the Vietnam War, and there were veterans of 4 wars who were patrons of that barbershop. World War I, World War II, the Korean War, and the Vietnam War, which was raging at that time, so it was quite the topic of discussion. And as a shoeshine boy, I kind of came of age there. It was a smoke-filled place. Everyone smoked something back in 1967, and I developed smoke allergies while I was there. So the smoke was part of the screenplay. The characters are each unique in their own way, but they're kind of a mixture and collage of different characters that were at the barbershop at that time. Shiner is the protagonist. He's the shoeshine boy, listening to the war stories that the men brought in. Paddy, the barber, was a unique character. It is based somewhat on the barber that I work for. Paddy is a man who dances around his chair and sings, and quite the character. And then there was Doc, who had been a medic in the service, and the name stuck. There was Brother Boggs, who was a preacher and had been a chaplain in the service. There was the hippie that came in to basically argue and left without a haircut, who told everyone that the Vietnam War was dumb. So there were just minor characters coming and going throughout the script, much as a barbershop would be today and was then. The script is a drama. It's a bit heavy. It's got a consistent tone, consistent heavy tone. It's got unique, as I'd mentioned, unique characters. It's got a interesting dialogue, and it's all set in one room. It's in the barbershop, and there's a lot of dialogue because that's what happened in the barbershop. And the dialogue has to carry it forward. There's really no action. The antagonist in the script is war. There was no person who was antagonist, but war was what everyone was really fighting at that time. The devastating effects of war, possibly I should say. Some of the men came home injured physically, some mentally. One of the characters came home without legs, and I actually had a next door neighbor who came home without legs from Vietnam. There was one boy who was a patron at the barbershop who was killed in Vietnam and didn't come home at all. There were men with PTSD, and all these men in some way carried long-term effects of being in war. In fact, one of the characters, which was based on someone I know, had lost a lung at Normandy and eventually died of cancer. They couldn't operate because they only had one lung. He got cancer in one lung. And that was a long-term effect. 20 years after the war, he died of cancer because he couldn't be treated for it. So that tells about the script, the characters, the dialogue, the tone. How did I develop it, and what was the process? Actually, I wrote Paddy's Tonsorial Emporium as a short story. I submitted it to some publishers and contests. I had some short stories published, and and Paddy's was published as an anthology. And I submitted to a writing contest, and one of the judges suggested I make it into a screenplay. I had no experience at all in writing screenplays, and so I did what everyone does. I Googled it. So I Googled it, and I went to YouTube, watched a lot of videos. I bought some books. Bought Save the Cat, which is a good book if you're going to write a screenplay. And I began. I downloaded some free software. It was free for a month, and in a month I had written the short story, the short script. I liked the software so much I bought it and began working on Paddy's Tonsorial, the feature. And it's a bit of a work in progress. So another thing I did was I submitted it to some contests and kind of threw it to the wolves, and got back judges' critiques, and found out that it needed a lot of work. So I would take the critiques and study them, and I continued honing and improving and working on Paddy's until I got it to where I was satisfied with it. The next and last question you asked was helpful tips. If I were to offer a tip, it would be to accept and learn from the critiques, from the judges. We have a tendency in life when someone criticizes us to get defensive, and I would receive a rejection letter, and I would read it and get a little bit offended, take it personal, and then lay it down. And after the sting was over, about an hour later, maybe even the next day, depending on the letter, I would sit down and underline and circle. And if there was a consistent theme between judges, then I would say, that's something that needs worked on then. Of course, you're going to have outliers. You're going to have differences of opinions. I would have one judge say, well, your characters need to work. And one say that the characters carry it forward. One would say that the dialogue, too much dialogue. One would say the dialogue was just amazing. I just love the dialogue. So there were lots of differences of opinion. Sometimes, the judges are a little bit mean, and when they're a little bit mean, you have to kind of set those aside and say, well, that's maybe not someone I need to listen to. But I would try to go through the critiques and glean from them whatever I could and learn from them and consider them suggestions rather than criticism. So if I were to make a suggestion, that would be it. Well, again, thank you very much for the first place in the short screenplay competition of yours. I very much appreciated it and hope someday after this COVID thing's over that we can meet. And it's too bad we couldn't have the award ceremony, but I very much appreciate it. So if you get this, I will have figured out how to send it to you, because I recorded it both on my telephone or on my cell phone and on the computer, hoping I can get one of them to you. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Goodbye.